So yes, here we are backstage. It's got to be pretty exciting for you. You said this is like the biggest venue you've ever played.
Yeah, 600 people. It's pretty crazy.
You're a Scarborough kid through and through. You grew up here. How does that shape sort of who you are as a person, but also, yeah, the jokes you tell on stage?
Yeah, I think I'm so proud to be from Scarborough. We always, when we travel, we always say Toronto, and then it kind of gets faded away into the back, or Scarborough's got a bad rep in the past. And I think over the last few years, people have really been honing in on Scarborough pride. The largest Tamil community outside of Sri Lanka lives in Canada, and then some of them live in Scarborough and Markham and East Toronto. So it is home. No matter where I go, even when I go to Sri Lanka, that doesn't feel like home. This is home to me. But growing up here, it really much felt like I could be myself in many ways, in my culture. I'm going around the world doing Tamil comedy as a Canadian, and people are always astonished, like, one, how do you have the command of the language? How do you know the cultural references? How do you know the Tamil movies, the music, and pop culture? How do you ingrain all of that when you were born in Canada? And I'm like, yeah, that's because I'm from Scarborough.
I saw this adorable photo of you and maybe a sibling or a cousin, but you were talking about, getting on the bus, going to Tamil lessons when you were a kid and sort of being like, oh, why are we doing this again? But now, being just so thankful that you did that.
Yeah, my parents forced us into Tamil school. Like, that was our weekends. And plus, there was Tamil radio always playing in my house. There was always Tamil movies and Tamil music. And so being immersed in that is what gave me that command of language, because you can learn a language, but to make jokes in a language is a level of proficiency that you need to be immersed in to be able to do. And so I'm so thankful for going through that torture as a kid now.
Take us back to when you first started doing comedy, and from what I understand, it was just a little while after you came out to your parents. This was like 2018?
2018, yeah. So I'd done emceeing, wedding emceeing, and public speaking and things like that. And comedy wasn't something that I ever thought I could do because it involves being authentic on stage and being your whole self. And hiding a big part of me for a lot of that for over 30 years, I didn't think I could do that on stage because I'd have to play somebody I wasn't. Right. And I didn't want to do that. So to be authentic, I wanted to be able to talk about what it feels like to be queer, what it feels like to be queer in Scarborough, what it feels like to be queer in Tamil, and all of those things. And so comedy started as a way for me to show the community what my life was like, tell the story, my life stories to them in a way that is funny, but also kind of gives them a takeaway of wait, he's just like us, he's gone through this, he's lived through this, and he has this extra thing or extra challenge that maybe we could help other people who are growing up this way, whether there's their kids, whether it's their community members, and there's this whole Western perspective of coming out is the only way, and that everybody has to be out or you can't live a fulfilling life, or that only the people who are out are queer. Queerness exists around us wherever we go, whether people say it or not, whether they're out or not. And so being able to convey that through storytelling and in a funny way, going into little stories about what happens in my life, I think that really relates to people.
We need gay arranged marriage. Imagine a gay arranged marriage, right? A gay arranged marriage would be me and my amma walking around with my horoscope and my nudes.
My parents haven't come to a show yet, but uncles and aunts and people are hearing about it and coming through now. So it's really reaching another generation of people as well. So because of language, there's so many barriers to those things that people might have not been able to communicate in the past. And through comedy, I'm able to do that. So that's really exciting for me.
Sunthar started building his following on social media. Then just before the pandemic, he moved to the UK after landing a dream job in marketing, one he ultimately ended up losing after the company discovered he was also doing comedy on the side.
It was really hard for me because that's why I moved to London, because this was my dream, to make money and make it in the corporate world and do all the things. My parents have a grade 3 in high school education, right? So to excel in academia and in the corporate world is huge. But having that out of the way, it was like, okay, wait, what do I want to do, and what do I do next? And so I started the Tamil Comedy Club in London.
Right.
And the reason I do Tamil comedy, people always ask me, okay, why not English comedy? What about mainstream comedy?
Right.
And my argument is your mainstream is different from my mainstream. And so for me, Tamil comedy is not because it's going to be in Tamil the whole time. Tamil is my identity as well as it is language. So 90% of the show is in English, but I'm able to speak to my community and to my audience in a way that I want to be spoken to.
You're already getting this like massive recognition, love from audiences, but also one of the first openly queer Tamil comedians to tour globally. Like, that's amazing. First Tamil to sell out the Paris Apollo Theater. Like, how does that sit?
Yeah, I went in there and I saw like Dave Chappelle's photo on the wall, and like these greats who have like sold out the same theater, and I was like, wait, should I be here? Is this the right place? So that is like, yeah, it's unbelievable, really. But also like it gives me so much pride in the fact that I'm doing Tamil comedy in that space, in these traditional English, whatever, mainstream spaces. I'm taking it over with one of the largest languages, one of the languages and cultures as the reason why I'm in Canada, right? My parents fled Sri Lanka as refugees because of their Tamil identity. So my comedy is an act of resistance in many ways. And to see that well received across globally, and then add on to that, you know, the queerness, which is another level of conversation that isn't talked about, and it is suppressed in a lot of countries. And so being able to be that person and doing that and in the same venues as like greats like that is, it's unbelievable, really. And I hope that continues, and I hope to grow it. That's what it is. This is I consider myself a startup, and this is very much the initial phases. You know, we moved from bars to theaters now. Hopefully some more theaters for this year, and then hopefully one day arenas. And that's the dream. And if I can manifest it and say it on record right now, that hopefully one day it'll happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward maybe a year or two, we'll meet you at ACC for the next one, right?
Maybe, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.